Ladies and gentlemen, this morning we submit our steps to God, acknowledging that human strength is limited, but divine wisdom is sure. As the day opens, we ask for light where decisions confuse us, peace where anxiety knocks, and clarity where voices compete. Let every movement align with purpose, every conversation carry grace, and every opportunity reveal direction. We reject haste, fear, and distraction, choosing sensitivity to the Spirit, trusting that obedience today positions us for favor, protection, and quiet confidence as we walk. The surrender of daily decisions to God begins with the recognition that no day is ordinary and no choice is insignificant. From the moment we wake, life presents options that shape outcomes, directions, and destinies, and many of these choices appear small enough to be handled casually. Yet spiritual understanding teaches that every decision carries a seed, and whatever is planted determines what will eventually grow. To surrender daily decisions is not weakness. It is wisdom rooted in the awareness that God sees the end from the beginning, while man only sees fragments. When a person submits the details of life to God, they are not abandoning responsibility. They are aligning responsibility with divine intelligence that cannot fail. True surrender requires intentional dependence. It means refusing to rush ahead of God, even when logic suggests urgency. Many errors are not born from evil intentions, but from independence, from assuming that experience alone is enough to navigate the complexities of life. When decisions are surrendered, prayer becomes a consultation, not a ritual. The heart learns to ask before acting, to wait before speaking, and to listen before concluding. This posture protects the soul from unnecessary regret and preserves peace in seasons where pressure demands quick answers. Daily surrender also reshapes priorities. It trains the heart to value obedience above convenience and accuracy above speed. In a world driven by noise, opinions, and constant urgency, surrender teaches stillness. It creates space for divine impressions, subtle instructions, and inner checks that guide the believer away from harm and toward growth. Many breakthroughs are not dramatic events, but quiet instructions obeyed consistently, instructions that only become clear to those who have learned to yield their will. Surrendering decisions affects relationships deeply. Words spoken in anger, responses given without restraint, and actions taken in pride often damage what God intends to build. When decisions are laid before God, discernment governs reactions. The Spirit influences tone, timing, and intent, ensuring that conversations heal rather than wound. This kind of surrender produces maturity, where emotions no longer dominate choices and impulses, no longer dictate direction. Financial, professional, and personal decisions also fall under this surrender. Rather than being driven solely by profit, fear, or comparison, the surrendered heart seeks alignment. Some opportunities look attractive, but carry hidden costs, while others appear modest, yet hold long-term impact. God's guidance helps distinguish between what is good and what is ordained. Daily surrender prevents compromise, guarding integrity and sustaining honor, even when shortcuts seem tempting. This surrender is practiced, not assumed. It grows through daily acknowledgement of God's authority and wisdom. Each morning becomes an altar where plans are presented, expectations are adjusted, and outcomes are entrusted to God. Over time, the heart becomes trained to recognize divine direction with ease, developing confidence not in personal ability but in God's faithfulness. This confidence does not eliminate challenges, but it anchors the soul in trust even when answers delay. Surrender also confronts pride gently but fondly. It challenges the illusion of control that often fuels anxiety. Many burdens people carry are the result of assuming responsibility for outcomes that were never theirs to control. When decisions are surrendered, responsibility shifts from anxiety to obedience. The believer focuses on faithfulness while trusting God with results. This exchange produces rest, clarity, and spiritual stamina. The process of surrender refines character. It teaches patience in waiting seasons, humility in success, and resilience in uncertainty. When God directs daily decisions, life becomes intentional rather than reactive. Each step carries meaning, each pause has purpose, and even detours serve instruction. The surrendered life learns to interpret delays as protection and redirections as mercy. As surrender deepens, discernment sharpens. The heart becomes sensitive to inner unrest, spiritual warnings, and confirmations that guide decisions. Peace becomes a compass, not a feeling dependent on circumstances, but an assurance rooted in alignment with God. This peace guards the mind against confusion and protects the heart from fear-driven choices. Daily surrender does not remove effort, it directs it. The believer still plans, works, and strives, but with divine partnership. Effort becomes effective because it flows from instruction rather than assumption. Even when mistakes occur, surrender allows quick correction, repentance, and realignment without condemnation. Over time, a surrendered life becomes a testimony. Others observe consistency, wisdom, and calm in moments where chaos is expected. Decisions reflect depth rather than impulse, and outcomes reveal grace beyond explanation. This life quietly declares that God is involved, active, and trustworthy in the affairs of men, shaping paths, opening doors, closing others, arranging encounters, and establishing steps according to a wisdom higher than human reasoning, forming a daily walk that is guided not by pressure or fear, but by alignment, sensitivity, and trust in divine direction that continues to unfold with each moment of yielded obedience and attentive listening to the voice that leads from within and ahead. Sensitivity to divine guidance is cultivated through a conscious awareness that God is always speaking, even when life feels silent. Guidance is not limited to dramatic visions or audible voices. More often, it flows through quiet impressions, inner convictions, scriptural alignment, and an unexplainable restraint or urge within the heart. Many miss divine direction not because God is absent, but because the heart is noisy, distracted, or hurried. Sensitivity begins when a person values God's voice above urgency, emotions, and external pressure, choosing to slow down internally even when life demands speed externally. To be sensitive to divine guidance requires purity of intention. When motives are mixed, guidance becomes distorted. The heart must desire God's will more than personal comfort, recognition, or gain. This kind of sensitivity is dangerous to pride because it demands honesty, teachability, and submission. God often guides by correcting attitudes before directing actions because character sustains destiny. A heart that listens selectively cannot receive clearly. Sensitivity grows when the believer is willing to obey even when instruction contradicts preference. Instruction often comes progressively. God rarely reveals everything at once. He guides step by step to build trust and dependence. Sensitivity learns to honor partial instructions without demanding full clarity. Many delays in life are not from God's silence, but from disobedience to previous instructions. When the last direction is ignored, the next one is withheld. Sensitivity recognizes that obedience unlocks further clarity. Each act of obedience sharpens spiritual perception, making the heart more responsive to future guidance. Divine guidance is closely tied to peace, not emotional excitement, but deep spiritual assurance. Sensitivity learns to interpret peace as a signal and unrest as a warning. When a decision looks good but steals peace, sensitivity pauses. When a path seems challenging but carries peace, Sensitivity proceeds. This peace is not based on visible outcomes, but on alignment with God's will. It guards the heart against fear-driven choices and impulsive actions fueled by pressure or comparison. Sensitivity is also shaped through the Word. God will never guide in contradiction to his nature or principles. A heart saturated with truth becomes discerning, able to distinguish between divine instruction and personal impulse. The more the Word fills the heart, the clearer guidance becomes. Scripture trains the conscience, calibrates perception, and filters voices. Without this foundation, sensitivity becomes emotionalism rather than spiritual discernment. Instruction sometimes comes through people, circumstances, and timing. Sensitivity learns not to idolize methods but to recognize patterns. God may speak through counsel, correction, delays, or closed doors. A sensitive heart does not fight resistance blindly. It asks questions. Not every closed door is opposition, and not every open door is permission. Sensitivity evaluates movement with prayer, alignment, and peace rather than excitement alone. Waiting is a critical school for sensitivity. In waiting seasons, God trains the heart to listen deeply. Impatience dulls sensitivity, while patience refines it. Many wrong decisions are made not because guidance was absent, but because waiting was uncomfortable. Sensitivity values timing as much as direction. Acting too early can be as damaging as acting wrongly. God's instruction often includes when, not just what. Sensitivity to divine guidance requires humility. God resists pride because pride assumes sufficiency. A humble heart remains dependent, asking for direction even in familiar situations. Experience is valuable, but it must never replace dependence. What worked yesterday may not work today. Sensitivity understands that seasons change, and guidance must be fresh. Daily dependence keeps the heart flexible and responsive. Obedience strengthens sensitivity. Every time instruction is followed, confidence in God's voice increases. Fear diminishes. Trust deepens. Disobedience, on the other hand, numbs perception. Repeatedly ignoring instruction hardens the heart, making guidance harder to discern. Sensitivity therefore guards obedience, even in small matters, knowing that faithfulness in little preserves clarity in much. Divine instruction often protects before it promotes. Sensitivity recognizes that God's guidance is not only about advancement, but preservation. Some instructions are meant to shield the believer from unseen danger, emotional exhaustion, or spiritual compromise. These instructions may not make sense immediately, but later reveal God's mercy. Sensitivity trusts God's character, even when logic struggles. As sensitivity grows, decision-making becomes less stressful. The believer no longer carries the burden of figuring everything out alone. Guidance becomes relational rather than mechanical. The heart learns to walk with God, not just consult Him occasionally. This walk produces confidence without arrogance, courage without recklessness, and peace without passivity. Sensitivity also requires discipline. Time with God is not optional if guidance is desired. Rushed prayers produce shallow clarity. Stillness sharpens perception. In quiet moments, the heart learns to recognize God's voice distinct from emotions, fear, and ambition. This recognition grows through consistency, not crisis alone. Ultimately, sensitivity to divine guidance transforms life into a journey of alignment rather than striving. Each step is taken with awareness, each decision made with reverence, and each outcome entrusted to God. The heart remains attentive, the spirit responsive, and the will yielded, allowing instruction to flow freely, shaping thoughts, influencing actions, correcting motives, ordering priorities, directing paths, and sustaining a walk that remains open teachable, alert and continually tuned to the subtle movements of divine wisdom that guide gently yet firmly through every season. every choice, every moment of dependence, without drifting into self-reliance or careless assumption, maintaining a posture of listening that stays alive, expectant, and deeply connected to the source of true direction. Walking in peace, despite uncertainty, begins with the understanding that peace is not the absence of questions, but the presence of trust. Uncertainty is a constant feature of human life because no one has full control or complete information about tomorrow. Yet spiritual peace operates on a higher law, one that is anchored in God's nature rather than visible outcomes. This peace does not deny uncertainty. It overrides its power to intimidate the heart. When the soul learns to rest in God, uncertainty loses its ability to create fear, panic, or hurried decisions. Many people equate peace with clarity, but true peace often exists even when clarity is partial. God does not always explain before He leads. He often asks for trust before understanding. Walking in peace means accepting that God may reveal direction progressively, not completely, and choosing calm obedience instead of anxious analysis. This posture frees the heart from the burden of trying to predict outcomes and shifts focus to faithfulness in the present moment. Uncertainty tests the foundations of trust. When circumstances are stable, faith appears strong. But when outcomes are unclear, the heart is exposed. Peace in uncertainty comes from knowing who holds the future rather than knowing the future itself. This confidence grows through relationship, not information. The more the believer knows God's character, the less threatened they are by unanswered questions. God's consistency becomes the anchor when circumstances fluctuate. Walking in peace requires restraint of the mind. The mind naturally seeks certainty and control, replaying scenarios and imagining worst outcomes. Peace demands discipline, choosing not to entertain every thought that presents itself. The heart must learn to submit thoughts to truth rather than allowing fear to dominate imagination. When uncertainty arises, peace responds by recalling God's faithfulness, past victories, and proven guidance, silencing anxiety with remembrance. Prayer plays a central role in maintaining peace. Not all prayers remove uncertainty, but they reposition the heart. Prayer shifts focus from what is unknown to who is in control. It releases internal tension and invites divine assurance that surpasses logic. Even when answers delay, prayer sustains peace by keeping the heart connected to God rather than isolated in worry. Peace in uncertainty also requires acceptance of limitations. Human effort cannot eliminate all risk or predict all outcomes. Attempting to do so only increases stress. Walking in peace means acknowledging limits without despair. It means doing what is required today and entrusting tomorrow to God. This surrender reduces pressure and preserves emotional stability even in unpredictable seasons. Comparison is a major enemy of peace. In uncertain seasons, observing others who appear settled or successful can intensify anxiety. Peace requires focusing on personal alignment rather than external timelines. God's dealings are individual, and paths differ according to purpose. Walking in peace means resisting the urge to measure progress by another person's journey and trusting that God's timing is intentional. Uncertainty often accompanies transition. New seasons rarely come with full clarity. Peace allows movement without full assurance. It permits obedience even when the road ahead is unfamiliar. Those who walk in peace understand that God often guides through motion, not stagnation. Waiting does not always mean inactivity. It sometimes means moving carefully with trust rather than rushing with fear. Peace also guards relationships during uncertain times. Stress often causes impatience, irritability, and withdrawal. Walking in peace preserves kindness, patience, and emotional balance. It allows the believer to respond rather than react, maintaining composure when outcomes are unclear. This stability becomes a witness of trust and maturity. Walking in peace does not deny pain, disappointment, or concern. It acknowledges them without allowing them to rule. Peace coexists with responsibility, planning, and effort, but it refuses to be ruled by pressure. It keeps the heart steady while the mind processes change. This balance prevents burnout and emotional exhaustion. God often uses uncertainty as a tool to deepen dependence. When answers are delayed, reliance increases. Peace grows stronger in these moments because it is no longer based on visible support systems, but on divine assurance. What once caused anxiety becomes an opportunity to experience God's nearness more deeply. Peace in uncertainty strengthens discernment. Fear clouds judgment, but peace clarifies it. When the heart is calm, decisions are made wisely. When anxiety dominates, mistakes multiply. Walking in peace protects from impulsive choices made out of desperation. It allows time for reflection, prayer, and alignment. This peace must be protected intentionally. It is fragile when neglected. Overexposure to negative voices, constant news, or fearful conversations can erode peace quickly. Guarding peace involves choosing what to listen to, what to meditate on, and where to place attention. Peace grows where trust is nurtured. As peace becomes a habit, uncertainty loses its grip. The heart becomes resilient, stable, and confident even when outcomes remain unseen. Life is approached with calm expectation rather than anxious anticipation. The believer moves forward anchored in trust, sustained by assurance, guided by faith, and strengthened by the quiet confidence that God remains present, active and faithful even when the path ahead is not fully revealed, allowing each step to be taken with calm assurance, steady obedience in arrest, and unwavering reliance on divine wisdom that holds tomorrow securely, while grace supplies strength for today without collapsing under the weight of unanswered questions or the pressure of unknown outcomes that continue to unfold moment by moment under God's watchful care. Alignment of every step with God's purpose begins with the understanding that life is not random and destiny is not accidental. Every individual is created with intention, and purpose gives meaning to movement. When steps are aligned with God's purpose, life gains direction beyond personal ambition. This alignment is not achieved by striving harder, but by yielding deeper. It requires the heart to desire God's agenda above personal plans, trusting that divine purpose carries fulfillment, impact, and lasting value beyond temporary success. Many people are active yet misaligned. They move quickly but without direction, accomplishing much while missing what truly matters. Alignment brings focus. It filters opportunities, desires, and decisions through the lens of purpose. Not everything that is possible is permissible, and not everything that looks successful is purposeful. Alignment teaches discernment, helping the believer recognize which paths lead to destiny and which only satisfy ego or pressure. God's purpose is revealed progressively. Alignment does not always come with full understanding. Often, it begins with obedience in small instructions. Faithfulness in minor steps prepares the heart for greater responsibility. Purpose is rarely discovered in a single moment. It unfolds through consistent alignment over time. Each obedient step positions the believer closer to clarity, maturity, and effectiveness. Alignment requires submission of will. God's purpose may challenge personal preferences, comfort, and expectations. Some steps require patience when speed is desired, restraint when action feels urgent, and courage when fear argues against obedience. Alignment demands trust that God's wisdom surpasses human logic. This trust frees the heart from frustration when the path seems slower or less glamorous than expected. Walking in alignment reshapes identity. Instead of defining life by titles, achievements, or approval, the believer defines life by obedience and faithfulness. This perspective produces stability. When success is measured by alignment rather than applause, peace remains intact regardless of external validation. Purpose-driven living removes the pressure to compete and replaces it with contentment in assignment. God's purpose often involves preparation seasons. These seasons may feel hidden, repetitive, or uneventful, but they are essential. Alignment teaches patience in preparation, recognizing that strength, character, and skill are formed before visibility. Skipping preparation leads to collapse, while embracing it ensures sustainability. Purpose is not only about where one is going, but who one is becoming along the way. Alignment also affects decision-making. Choices are no longer made solely based on convenience or immediate gain. The question shifts from what feels good now to what serves purpose long-term. This perspective protects from distractions that delay destiny. Many detours are attractive but costly. Alignment provides the discipline to say no to good things that compete with God's best. God's purpose is larger than personal benefit. Alignment often includes service, sacrifice, and contribution to others. Purpose-driven steps impact lives, build communities, and advance God's intentions beyond individual success. This understanding removes selfishness and cultivates compassion. Fulfillment increases when life becomes a channel rather than a container. Alignment with God's purpose requires constant recalibration. Seasons change, assignments shift, and instructions evolve. What was aligned yesterday may require adjustment today. Daily dependence keeps alignment fresh. Pride resists correction, but humility welcomes it. A teachable heart remains sensitive to divine redirection, avoiding stagnation and remaining effective. Challenges do not indicate misalignment. Resistance often accompanies purpose. When steps align with God's will, opposition may increase, but grace also multiplies. Alignment provides endurance, enabling the believer to persevere without bitterness or discouragement. Purpose sustains motivation when results delay and strength wanes. Alignment produces clarity in confusion. When the heart is aligned, even uncertainty has boundaries. Decisions are guided by conviction rather than pressure. This clarity reduces anxiety and increases confidence. The believer moves forward knowing that even mistakes are redeemed when the heart remains aligned and repentant. God's purpose brings order to life. Priorities shift, habits adjust, and time is stewarded intentionally. Alignment disciplines daily routines, ensuring that energy is invested where it matters most. Distractions lose power when purpose is clear. Life becomes structured around what advances calling rather than what entertains desire. Walking in alignment cultivates gratitude. Each step, whether small or significant, is recognized as part of a larger story. Delays are interpreted as protection, and progress is celebrated without pride. This gratitude sustains joy and prevents dissatisfaction. As alignment deepens, life reflects intentionality. The believer becomes confident without arrogance, focused without rigidity, and passionate without anxiety. Each step carries meaning. Each decision serves purpose. And each season contributes to destiny, forming a life that moves steadily according to divine design, guided by obedience, sustained by grace, shaped by wisdom, strengthened by trust, refined through discipline, and consistently directed toward the fulfillment of God's eternal purpose, unfolding through daily faithfulness, surrendered choices, spiritual awareness, and unwavering commitment to walk in harmony with the will of God that orders steps, establishes paths, and gives meaning to every moment of the journey without drifting into self-direction or losing sensitivity to the divine.